Medical Center. Welcome, Dr.
Good to see you again.
Same here, and since the last time we met, the book was just released. There have been some more articles by you in New York Times, and taking cue from one of your articles, let me begin by asking you, do you think the kind of attitude which a patient have also affects in the process of his recovery?
I mean, absolutely, absolutely. You know, the article I wrote was about intuition, but I think attitude and intuition are linked. Let me just tell you what the article that I wrote was about how patients sometimes have an intuition about their own death. And I've seen this over and over in my practice over the years, that some patients seem to have an almost sixth sense for when they're about to die. And I specifically wrote about a patient who was admitted to the hospital with a fairly mild case of congestive heart failure. I'm a heart failure specialist, so fun being able to recognize when people are very sick and when they need more specialized intervention. So this patient came into the hospital. He, I thought, was fairly stable, and about 1 or 2 days into his hospital course, he told me that he didn't think he was going to make it out of the hospital alive. And I said, "Oh, no, you'll be fine." And you know, on the scale of illness that I treat, this was relatively mild. But then, and sort of mysteriously, he started getting sicker, and his legs filled up with fluid filled his lungs, and in the end, after about a 2-week course, he went to the intensive care unit also. His wife asked that he be enrolled in a hospice program, and he died. And it got me thinking about how some patients seem to have an intuition for their own deaths that doctors don't always have.
Now, this leads us to how this intuition is formed, who can tell? Let me share a Urdu couplet with you on this. Poet says, शायर says कि लब पे आती है बात दिल से हफीज, लब पे आती है बात दिल से हफीज, बात दिल में कहाँ से आती है? So the kind of thoughts you have, the intuition that you have, how, where is the seed of such intuition, if you try to think about it?
Well, I mean, I wish I knew the answer to that. But it's a age-old question. You know, what is the explanation for intuition? Is it all sort of based in the brain? Is there some spiritual element to it? I can tell you that I think that there is some biological basis for the intuition that I'm talking about, which is intuition about one's own death. It's to do with, I think, surges of adrenaline that occur when patients get very sick. And we know that some patients who have anxiety, you know, panic attacks, do often feel this sort of impending doom that they're going to die. But what you're asking, I think, is much more fundamental and really much more mysterious, is how do we develop intuition in the first place about things? And is there always a sort of mechanistic explanation, or is there something deeper? And we don't know. If I knew the answer, I'd probably be meeting with the King of Sweden receiving the Nobel Prize.
You know, the interesting part is, of course, you mentioned about one particular case when the patient, its intuition actually led to a particular event which was tragic in this case. Many times in human relations, people have different intuitions about the same thing, and that becomes a cause of conflict, because one person is feeling that be like it, the other person says no, it's going to be like it, and both of them probably do not have any logical way of explaining why they are thinking this way. Mm-hmm. Let's take the scenario of someone's career, and we'll go to your career also. In the formulating stage, you think about yourself that you are going to be X, Y, Z. In your case, let's say, at one point you feel that you are going to be a physicist.
Correct.
And then intuitively you have no clue that you're going to change the course of action in your life. So how the things took a different turn in your case?
You know, I always had an intuition that I wanted to work with language in my career. But, you know, as you know and as we've talked about, I was brought up in a fairly traditional Indian family. My parents really struggled when they came to the U.S. To survive financially. And for them, as for many immigrant Indian parents, medicine, law, engineering were sort of the staple professions that academically minded kids should go into. But I really had no interest in medicine initially or engineering. And my interest in law was trumped by my father's disdain for lawyers. So in the end, I ended up going to college and studying physics. But I always had a sense that I would return to my first love, which was writing. When I was growing up, you know, in elementary school and especially in high school, I really enjoyed writing essays. And this was my strength, I think. But I never found, back then, I never envisioned a way of using that skill in a profession. My father always said, you know, well, you'll write when you're, you know, if you're a scientist or a doctor, well, you have to write all the time. But the kind of writing I was interested in was different. So I had a sense that I was eventually going to land up in a place that was going to be fulfilling for me, using my talent as a, you know, as a writer. But I never envisioned that it would end up like this, you know. So we do have intuitions about things, and you know, the most important thing that, you know, young people, when they ask me when I go to events, you know, what should I do with my life, you know, and I struggle with that for a very long time. But the thing I tell them is that, you know, it's very important to envision what you want to be doing in 10 years and also what you don't want to be doing. That's almost equally important. And if you feel that you're on a track where you're going to be doing something that's going to make you unhappy, then it's very important to sort of change course. And the great thing about America is that you can reinvent yourself. I was 26 when I went to medical school. And I think there's limitations when you're in other countries and cultures. I think in America they sort of thrive on this sense of self-actualization, reinvention, and they don't pay so much attention to the age that you are, the chronological age that you are. So in some sense I had the opportunities being here that I might not have had, you know, somewhere else.